There's a certain kind of weakness that looks like virtue. It wears the face of patience. It speaks in the voice of humility. And it convinces you that silence, sacrifice, and self-erasure are signs of strength. But Machiavelli would tell you, that's not virtue, that's surrender. In a world where predators smile in suits, betrayal is masked as friendship, and obedience is repackaged as morality, the man who tolerates everything in the name of being good is not praised. He is used. You were taught to turn the other cheek, to give second chances, to be generous, patient, kind, no matter the cost. But here's the truth no one tells you. There is a point where kindness becomes self-destruction. And that point is where power slips from your hands, silently, invisibly, until you wake up and wonder why no one respects you. This video isn't here to make you comfortable, it's here to make you conscious. Because there are behaviors only a fool accepts, behaviors that quietly destroy your dignity, your authority, your peace, and worst of all, your self-respect. And if you've been the nice one for too long, if you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling invisible, manipulated, or ashamed of having needs, then this is your wake-up call. Machiavelli didn't write for saints, he wrote for survivors. And survival in this world demands more than a good heart. It demands a sharp mind. A mind that knows when kindness is strength and when it's a trap. Today we're going to walk through 8 toxic behaviors that drain you of your power while making others think they're entitled to it. Each one is subtle. Each one is common, and each one, if left unchecked, will cost you more than you realize. But here's the good news, you can unlearn them. And when you do, you don't become cruel, you become clear, so take a breath. Let go of the need to be liked, and prepare to meet the version of yourself who doesn't kneel for comfort, but rises for truth. Because the path to sovereignty begins when you stop tolerating what no longer serves you. And it starts now. Part 1. The apology reflex. When I'm sorry is a habit, not a choice. There's a moment, quiet, almost invisible, where you say, I'm sorry, and you don't even know why. You bump into someone. You speak your mind, you take up space, and without thinking you offer an apology. Not because you've done harm, but because you've been conditioned to believe existing with confidence is an offense. That's not humility. That's a reflex built from years of shrinking yourself for the comfort of others. Seneca once said, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." And what is unnecessary suffering if not apologizing for being who you are? Here's the hard truth. Every time you apologize for your presence, your opinion, your strength, you reinforce the belief that your power is something to be ashamed of. And worse, you teach others to treat it that way too. I'm sorry should be a deliberate act, not a default setting. There is a difference between responsibility and submission. Taking ownership for true harm is strength. But saying I'm sorry just to avoid tension, that's fear in disguise. Fear of judgment, fear of conflict, fear of being disliked. And what does fear do? It bends your spine. It lowers your voice. It teaches you to whisper when you were meant to speak. You weren't born to walk on eggshells. You weren't born to explain yourself before you've even done anything wrong. Machiavelli warned, "It is much safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." He wasn't advocating cruelty. He was exposing the trap of seeking approval over clarity. Because when you rely on being liked, you become easy to control. Apologizing for everything makes you soft clay in the hands of manipulators. They mold your self-doubt into silence, your guilt into obedience. So let's ask the real question. Who taught you to say, "I'm sorry," every time you assert your boundaries? Was it the teacher who didn't like your voice? The partner who punished your honesty? The friend who made you feel too much, too intense, too difficult? Whoever it was, they weren't trying to teach you virtue. They were trying to make you easier to manage. But you're not here to be manageable. You're here to be sovereign, to speak when it matters, to stand when it's easier to fold. So here's your challenge. The next time you feel, "I'm sorry," rising in your throat, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, did I violate a principle or just someone's preference? If it's a true mistake, own it. Correct it. Apologize with strength. But if you're just trying to stay small to keep the peace, say nothing. Hold your frame. Let the silence be your boundary. Because the world doesn't need more agreeable men. It needs men who know their value and don't shrink to prove they're good. Being kind does not mean being invisible. Being accountable does not mean being ashamed. And if you're going to say, "I'm sorry," make sure it's not because you were too much, but because you want to be even more honest, more disciplined, more grounded. No more reflex apologies. From now on, every word you speak is yours, and you don't owe anyone your silence. Part 2. Silent Suffering, the Self-Eraser Syndrome. There's a particular kind of suffering that doesn't scream, it doesn't lash out, it doesn't demand attention. It quietly endures, and maybe you know it well. The kind of pain where you shrink your presence so others can feel comfortable, where you silence your thoughts because you don't want to cause waves, where you trade your truth for harmony and your voice for peace. But peace built on your silence isn't peace, it's self-erasure. And every time you do it, something in you fades. Epictetus once said, "You are a soul carrying a corpse." But if you live every day pretending your needs don't matter, your voice doesn't count, your presence is too much, then you're not carrying a corpse. You're burying your soul in real time. Self-erasure doesn't happen all at once. It begins with small moments. You stay quiet during the meeting. You let the joke slide that wasn't funny. You say it's fine when it's clearly not. At first it feels noble, like you're being mature, like you're keeping the peace. But over time you start disappearing, not physically, but emotionally, spiritually. You become a ghost in your own life, visible to others, but hollow inside. And the tragedy is this: no one even notices, because you've trained them not to. You've made yourself so easy to ignore that your absence feels no different from your presence. Machiavelli would call this a strategic failure. He warned, "It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles." In other words, the world gives you exactly the level of respect you claim, no more, no less. And when you repeatedly choose silence over expression, compliance over confrontation, comfort over clarity, you don't look noble. You look forgettable. And the cost of being forgettable is steep. You get passed over, stepped on, taken for granted. But here's the thing. You weren't born to be agreeable. You weren't born to dilute yourself for the sake of others. You were born to take up space with your thoughts, your boundaries, your truth. And no, that doesn't mean being loud. It means being clear. It means walking into a room and not needing to explain why you deserve to be there. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you said what you really thought, without softening it, without apologizing, without worrying how it would land? When was the last time you stood your ground and let the silence speak for itself? Stoicism teaches us this. Your peace is not found in avoiding discomfort. It's found in your willingness to feel discomfort and still act from principle. So the next time you catch yourself disappearing, shrinking, nodding along when your soul wants to push back, pause. Ask yourself, am I being kind or am I being invisible? Because the world will only ever respect you as much as you respect yourself. If you don't protect your boundaries, your values, your identity, no one else will. And if you continue to suffer in silence, hoping someone will eventually notice or change, they won't. This is your wake-up call. You don't need to scream, but you do need to stop shrinking. Let them feel the weight of your presence. Let them adjust to the sound of your clarity. Let them see that your silence was not weakness, but discipline waiting to speak. And when you finally choose to speak, make it impossible to ignore. Not because you raised your voice, but because you finally stopped erasing yourself. Part 3. Forgiving without boundaries, a fool's trap. There's a kind of forgiveness that doesn't heal. It doesn't bring peace. It only brings a cycle of betrayal, followed by pardon, followed by another betrayal. And you call it maturity. You call it growth. But deep down, it's fear. You forgive not because they've changed, but because you're afraid of conflict. Because you'd rather carry the pain than confront the source. Because standing up might cost you something, and silence seems cheaper. But the truth, forgiveness without boundaries is not grace. It's surrender. Machiavelli said, "He who does not punish evil commands it to be done." He didn't mean you should seek revenge. He meant that every unchecked offense becomes an invitation, an open door saying, "Come in, hurt me again. I won't stop you." When you forgive too quickly, without clarity, without standards, without making them feel the weight of what they've done, you don't look wise. You look easy. And those who seek to use you, they see that. They feel it. And they come back, not with remorse, but with strategy, because now they know you'll fold. Let me ask you something. What are you actually forgiving? The action, or the intention, the mistake, or the pattern? Because people don't just hurt you once. They test how much you'll tolerate. And when you forgive without consequence, without pause, without demanding accountability, they learn how to move around you, not with respect, but with calculation. Seneca once wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." And when your forgiveness is given to everyone, to everything, without pause or principle, it means nothing. It loses power. It loses meaning. You must remember, forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is not access. Forgiveness is not letting them back into your life like nothing happened. Forgiveness is internal. It is your peace. But your peace must never come at the cost of your dignity. So here's what real strength looks like. You forgive the betrayal, but you walk away from the betrayer. You release the grudge, but you remember the lesson. You let go, but you never, ever let them back without earning it. Because what you tolerate, you teach. And what you forgive without clarity, you invite. This isn't about being cold. It's about being clear. If someone burns the bridge, they don't get to walk back on it just because you're kind. They rebuild it, plank by plank. And until then, you hold the line. This is not cruelty. It's emotional discipline. Kindness without discipline is weakness. Compassion without boundaries is self-betrayal. You can still be a good person and say, no more. You can still wish them well and never speak to them again. You can still believe in second chances without giving out unlimited ones. The Stoics teach us self-control is strength, right thought is mastery, calmness is power. Let your forgiveness come from a place of power, not pain. Let it be a choice, not a reaction. And most importantly, let it be filtered through your values, not your fears. Because the man who forgives everyone without line or law, he's not healed. He's hiding, and the world will not protect him. It will use him. So forgive, yes, but with your eyes open, with your spine straight, and with your boundaries sharp. That's not being heartless. That's knowing your worth. And when you live like that, you don't just forgive the pain, you outgrow the people who caused it. Part 4. Listening to everyone. The criticism drain. There is a silent thief that steals your confidence. One comment at a time. You've learned to value feedback, but not all feedback deserves a seat at your table. When you open your mind to every opinion, you clear the path for self-doubt to march right in. The weight of every voice. You check your phone, and the notifications scroll through. Advice, criticism, well-meaning suggestions. At first, each one feels like a gift. Then they begin to pile up, voices calling you to change at every turn. You arrive at a crossroads of confusion, wondering which path is truly yours. That's the criticism drain. Your energy leaking out into every passing opinion. Stoic discipline of the mind. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, reject your sense of injury and the injury itself disappears. He didn't mean pretend the hurt isn't real. He meant don't feed the wound by seeking every external diagnosis. Focus on what you can control, your own judgment, and let the rest fall away when every comment becomes a command. Imagine this, you speak up at work, a colleague questions your idea. Later, a friend questions your approach. Even strangers online weigh in. Soon, you find yourself re-editing your opinion before you even finish it. You're not refining your thoughts. You're bending to match everyone else's expectations. Your mind becomes a hall of mirrors, distorted, confusing, never clear. Filtering with purpose. Not all criticism is sabotage. Some voices carry wisdom earned by pain, by discipline, by honesty. The test is simple. Does this feedback help me become the man I intend to be? If yes, you listen fully, weigh it, and integrate what aligns with your principles. If not, you thank them silently and move on. A personal story. I once shared a personal reflection in a small group. One person praised the depth, but another dismissed it as naive. My first instinct was to apologize, to justify my words. But I remembered Epictetus's counsel. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. So I paused. I asked myself, which voice reflects the truth I stand for? And I chose to honor the one that saw value, not the one that dismissed it. Criticism as a tool, not a trap. When wielded wisely, feedback is a chisel shaping your marble. But when absorbed unfiltered, it becomes a flood that drowns your creativity. The difference lies in your response. Selective listening. You choose who influences your inner world. Discernment. You weigh intention, expertise, and alignment with your values. Self-trust. You honor your own voice as the final authority. Boundaries in conversation. You wouldn't give your heart to a stranger, so don't give your mind away either. Set conversational boundaries. Ask for context. Why do you say that? Clarify intent. Is this to help me or to satisfy your doubt? Limit your intake. Engage with one trusted advisor, not the crowd. A Stoic reminder. Seneca observed, associate with people who are likely to improve you. Your mental circle deserves the same filter as your social circle. Invite those who challenge you toward excellence. Politely decline those who chip away at your foundation. Reclaiming your inner authority. You are not a public forum. You are a sovereign mind. Your thoughts are not open source. They are the private domain where your character is forged. When you guard this domain, you preserve your clarity, your purpose, your power. Conclusion of this chapter. Listening can be a gift, but only when your mind is the recipient, not the hostage. Filter criticism through your values, your purpose, your inner compass. Silence irrelevant voices. Cherish the rare ones that guide you toward your highest self. Because at the end of the day, the man who masters his inner dialogue will not be ruled by the loudest outer noise. Part 5. The guilt of saying no. The lie behind endless agreement. You've been conditioned to say yes, to be agreeable, to stay polite, to not make waves. You were probably taught that saying no is selfish, rude, even heartless. So you nod. You agree. You accommodate. And slowly, piece by piece, you trade your time, your peace, and your priorities for the illusion of harmony. But let me ask you this. Who benefits from your constant agreement? Is it you, or is it the people who've learned they can count on your guilt more than your will? Machiavelli once said, "It is much safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Now think about that deeply. The man who is always agreeable, always available, always saying yes, is not respected. He is used. He becomes predictable, his boundaries dissolve, and the cost isn't just exhaustion. It's invisibility. Guilt is a manipulator's favorite tool. The moment you start valuing others' comfort above your own well-being, you enter a contract you never signed. And guilt is how that contract is enforced. Not with force, but with subtle pressure. You've changed. You used to be so nice. I just thought you'd help. It's not your job to be the emotional custodian of everyone's expectations. Saying no isn't betrayal. It's clarity. It's alignment. It's choosing your highest responsibilities over your lowest obligations. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." How many times have you said yes to something that felt wrong in your gut, just to avoid the discomfort of saying no? That's not virtue, that's avoidance. And avoidance, when repeated enough, becomes a cage. The power of a clear boundary. Every no you say with confidence is a step closer to living a life with intention. It's a line in the sand, a declaration that says, "I respect my time. I protect my energy. I honor my path." You don't have to explain your boundaries to everyone. You don't owe long apologies. You don't have to soften your truth for people who benefit from your silence. A firm no is often kinder than a resentful yes. Stoicism and the discipline of choice. The Stoics believed in living according to nature, not in the external world's chaos, but in your own internal order. To say no is not rebellion, it's alignment with your core. It's choosing what serves your principles over what satisfies someone else's passing comfort. Seneca said, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you. But if every yes you say pulls you further from who you want to become, are you improving or diluting?" A story you know too well. You've likely been there, working late because you didn't want to say no. Lending money you couldn't afford to lose. Attending events you had no energy for, all because you feared letting someone down more than betraying yourself. But here's the truth. Every time you say yes just to keep the peace, you start a war inside. And that war will wear you down until nothing's left of you but someone shaped by everyone else's demands. Reclaiming your sovereignty. You don't need permission to honor your limits. The world won't collapse because you said no to something that didn't align with you. In fact, the moment you start saying no with intention, you'll notice something strange. Respect follows, because power doesn't belong to the one who pleases everyone. It belongs to the one who can choose discomfort over dishonesty, the one who can disappoint others without abandoning themselves. Conclusion. So the next time you feel that familiar guilt rising as you consider saying no, pause, breathe, ask yourself, is this guilt a compass or is it a chain? You weren't born to serve everyone's narratives. You were born to live your own, and that starts not with loud rebellion, but with a quiet, grounded no. Not today, not at this cost, not at the expense of yourself. That's not selfish, that's strength. Part 6. Accepting empty promises as real currency. The mirage that costs you everything. There's a moment you've probably lived more than once. Someone looks you in the eye, says all the right things, the dream, the plan, the change, and something in you wants to believe them. You nod. You give them time, you give them trust, and in return, nothing. Because what they gave you wasn't a commitment, it was a performance. Promises are the cheapest currency in the game of manipulation. Anyone can make them. They cost nothing. But for the one who receives them, especially one who still believes in people too quickly, the price can be everything. Wasted time, delayed goals, emotional exhaustion. Machiavelli warned, men are quick to promise but slow to act. He understood that power doesn't lie in what is said. It lies in what is done, in what is proven. So why do you keep buying into promises that never materialize? Because part of you still believes in potential more than patterns. The Stoic discipline of reality. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." The same applies to others. Don't listen to their dreams. Watch their decisions. Don't be seduced by vision. Measure action. You've been lied to enough times to know this truth. People reveal their priorities not through their words, but through their consistency. A person who truly values something won't just promise, they'll build, they'll sacrifice, they'll show up again and again. Empty promises are not harmless. Some might say, but what's the harm in hope? The harm is that it robs you of focus. It chains your future to someone else's fantasy. It tricks your heart into waiting for a reality that never arrives. You plan your moves around their potential. You delay your growth for the sake of their comfort, and slowly you stop moving altogether because you're waiting on someone who never intended to meet you halfway. Hope, when disconnected from reality, becomes a drug, and the withdrawal will always be bitter. You are not a charity for broken promises. People who repeatedly fail to follow through aren't victims. They are architects of chaos. They build nothing and leave others to clean up the ruins. And if you're not careful, they will turn you into a maintenance man for their mess. So stop excusing delays. Stop justifying inconsistencies. Stop rationalizing why someone hasn't delivered. Because every time you do, you trade a piece of your clarity for their comfort. There's a difference between intent and impact. Someone can mean well and still waste your life. You need to remember, the gap between who someone could be and who they actually are is the space where most of your energy disappears. Do not live in that gap. Actions are the only valid proof. A wise man doesn't ask for promises. He demands results. Not rudely, not with entitlement, but with clarity and standards. You don't need to explain why you're no longer impressed by words. You don't owe anyone your patience if they've already used it up. You simply observe, you assess, and you act accordingly. A reminder from the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth by which no one was ever truly harmed." Apply that to yourself. If someone's promise doesn't align with their actions, be willing to change how you invest in them. That's not cruelty, that's maturity. Stop trading gold for smoke. You're building a life, a legacy, a code of discipline and self-respect. Do not fund that with empty pledges. From now on, treat promises like credit, unproven until paid in full. And remember, loyalty to dreams is noble, but loyalty to illusions is fatal. The next time someone says, "Trust me," ask yourself, have they earned it? Because if they haven't, your silence is more valuable than their script. And your time is worth more than their potential. You are not here to wait. You are here to rise. Part 7. The Hook of Helpful Control. There's a generosity that stings more than it soothes. It arrives in the form of an offer. "Let me help you." And your heart leaps, because who doesn't want a hand when the load feels too heavy? Yet beneath that kindness often lies a tether, pulling you towards someone else's agenda. When help becomes a hidden leash. You remember the project that stalled until a friend volunteered assistance. At first, relief, finally, progress. Then, gradually, unease, sudden requests for updates, expectations you never signed up for, subtle demands on your time and loyalty. Their help came with unspoken rules, and each one tightened the knot around your autonomy. Machiavelli's lesson on favors. Niccolò Machiavelli observed, "To flatter a man is to deceive him, but to deceive him by flattery is almost a lost art." Help can be the sweetest form of flattery. I want to save you. Yet it masks a power dynamic where your vulnerability becomes their leverage. The Stoic art of self-reliance. Epictetus taught, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Applied here, true independence means needing help only when it aligns with your values, not when it serves someone else's design. When you accept unsolicited aid, you exchange a piece of your sovereignty for the illusion of ease. Recognizing the hidden cost, pause and recall the last time you said, "Yes, thank you," without reflection. Did your gratitude turn into guilt? Did favors morph into expectations? Did freedom shrink as favors multiplied? These patterns reveal the hidden price tag to helpful interventions. Setting the boundaries of genuine support. Not all help is harmful. Some hands lift you higher without claiming your assent. The difference lies in transparency, mutual agreement. True help begins with a shared understanding what's needed and what return is fair. Respect for autonomy. A real ally offers tools, not dictation. They ask, "How can I assist?" Not, "Let me take over." Clear exit. When the work is done, genuine support releases you, rather than clinging on. A personal reflection. I once handed a draft to a mentor who promised to fine-tune it. Days passed with gentle reminders. "Any thoughts yet?" Then subtle critiques that demanded rewrites. My vision blurred under their corrections, and the piece lost its original spark. I had invited help, only to find my words reshaped by another's judgment. The power of saying, "I can manage." To protect your inner flame, sometimes you must refuse well-intentioned hands. A calm, firm, "I appreciate it, but I'll handle this," safeguards your purpose. It doesn't reject kindness. It honors your mission. Philosophical anchor. Self-mastery over dependency. Seneca reminded us, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. In this context, delay your impulse to accept help. Reflect. Is this support lifting me toward my goal or steering me toward theirs? Your delay is your guardrail, preventing the slippery slope from assistance to acquiescence, transforming help into empowerment. When you choose to let someone in, do so on your terms. Define the scope. What exactly do you need? Set milestones. How and when will you check progress together? Agree on closure. When will this collaboration end? This discipline ensures help serves you, rather than you serving it. Help should feel like wind at your back, not an anchor to your foot. When you sense the hook beneath the offer, thank the giver and decline. Then turn inward and ask, what can I learn? Where do I truly need support? Seek that kind of help, transparent, respectful, and freeing, because your journey is yours alone. Every tool you accept should sharpen your edge, never dull your sovereignty. And when you master the art of choosing help wisely, you become a true architect of your destiny. Part 8. Generosity without standards. There's a noble impulse in your heart to give without hesitation, to share your time, your resources, your energy, because you believe the world becomes better when you pour yourself into others. Yet, without guardrails, generosity can become its own trap, hollowing you out until there's nothing left for yourself. When kindness becomes a burden. You remember the colleague who always asked for small favors. At first, you were happy to help. Then the requests grew. Last-minute projects, weekend demands, emotional venting. You obliged again and again because you didn't want to let anyone down. But by the end of each week, you felt drained, resentful, and wondering, when did giving become a burden? Machiavelli on measured giving. Niccolò Machiavelli observed, generosity is rumored until it is exhausted. Then it is forgotten. He knew that giving without foresight invites others to expect more than you can sustain. Your kindness becomes a resource others exploit, and when it runs dry, your sacrifice is dismissed. Stoic wisdom on benefits. Seneca wrote in De Beneficiis, we should give without hesitation and without reward. Notice he did not advise endless giving. His emphasis was on intention, not on unbounded obligation. True generosity springs from clarity, knowing why you give, and understanding the cost to yourself. Recognizing the signs of unanchored generosity, unbalanced exchanges. You give wholeheartedly, but receive little or nothing in return. Persistent guilt. Saying no triggers anxiety, as if denying kindness is unforgivable. Emotional overdraft. Your compassion account is overdrawn, leaving you unable to care even for your own needs. If these patterns sound familiar, you're experiencing the cost of generosity without standards. the discipline of discerned generosity. To reclaim your strength, begin by defining your limits. Assess your resources. Before committing, ask, do I have the time, energy, and capacity to give without harming my well-being? Clarify intent. Ask yourself, why am I giving? If it's driven by guilt or fear of rejection, pause. Communicate boundaries. A gentle but firm, I'd love to help, but I can only commit X amount, transforms open-ended demands into respectful agreements. By applying these guidelines, your generosity becomes sustainable, a true gift, rather than a silent surrender. A personal turning point. I once mentored a young writer, spending hours each week refining drafts. At first it felt meaningful, but soon I noticed my own projects stalling, my creativity waning. When I set a clear limit, 2 hours per week, I found my own work flourishing again. I didn't stop caring. I rediscovered the joy of mindful generosity, giving when I was fully able to. Generosity as empowerment, not exploitation. True generosity uplifts both giver and receiver. It creates mutual respect and deepens relationships. But for that to happen, both parties must value the exchange. You give because you choose to, and they receive because they honor your gift. Gratitude is not optional. Appreciation is the echo that lets you know your kindness landed as intended. Reciprocity need not be equal. A simple acknowledgement often suffices to preserve your dignity and theirs. Philosophical anchor: self-mastery over self-sacrifice. Epictetus taught, no man is free who is not master of himself. Boundaries are not barriers to kindness. They are the walls that protect your inner citadel. When you master the art of giving with intention and limits, you remain free to give joyfully rather than grudgingly. Your invitation to change. Reflect on your own patterns of generosity. Where have you given so much that your own well ran dry? What boundaries can you introduce today so your kindness remains a source of strength? Remember, you are not a bottomless well. You are a reservoir of purpose, passion, and principle. Give from that reservoir, never to empty it. Generosity without standards is not virtue, it's vulnerability. But generosity with discernment is power made manifest. Set your limits, honor your boundaries. And in doing so, you ensure that every gift you offer amplifies your strength, not diminishes it. When your kindness is framed by wisdom, you become not just a giver, but a beacon of true, sustainable compassion. Conclusion. You've just walked through 8 behaviors that slowly drain your strength, not all at once, but quietly. Repeatedly, until one day you wake up wondering where your energy, your time, your self-respect went. But here's the truth, they were never stolen. You gave them away, piece by piece, because you didn't yet know how to protect them. Machiavelli wasn't warning fools out of cruelty. He was calling them to awareness. Because in a world ruled by quiet power and unseen games, the cost of emotional naivety is everything. The Stoics taught us that discipline is freedom, that clarity is power, and that a man who masters himself cannot be owned by others. So now it's your turn. Reclaim your voice. Set your standards. Guard your generosity, not because the world is unkind, but because your energy is sacred. Your time is limited, and your dignity should never be up for negotiation. If this video stirred something in you, if you recognized even one of these patterns in your own life, then do more than just watch. Begin the quiet rebellion. Start by subscribing to the Stoic philosophy, because every week we'll be walking this path of clarity, of courage, of quiet strength. And if you know someone who's losing themselves by trying to be good in all the wrong ways, Share this with them. Sometimes all it takes is a single truth to wake up the wolf within. Remember, being liked is not the goal. Being respected by yourself is